together some stuff in the neighborhood. But good morning. Good morning. All right. I need you all to do me a favor. I need both hands in the air. Handshake. All right. Now that we all did the germ-free handshake, how you doing? Okay. Now we family. And thank you for allowing me to come present a few words to you. I'm going to talk a little bit about the world as it is. Then I'm going to spend a lot of time about the world as it should be. All right. We know and understand that those folks returning home are having a very hard time. A very hard time. And accessing resources, accessing housing, and getting a job. And part of it is that every time you go to apply for a job, they ask you a question on the application. And right now, you are the only group in this country that can be legally discriminated against through a checkbox. That can be legally discriminated against. That's not the world as it should be. But that is the world as it is. So until we get to the world as it should be, there's a few things we got to do. We got to, number one, always be prepared. We have to always be prepared. And what does that mean? If we are looking for a position and that there's competition with that position, folks are going to judge us and can legally discriminate against us currently. So we got to make sure that our skill set is 2 times or 1.5 times better than the rest of the competition. So being prepared, to me, means that, if you're applying for a job to be a carpenter or a plumber or even a salesman, your sales skills have to shine through in the world as it currently is. You have to show people that your skills will outweigh anything that lies in your past so that you're not discriminated against. And being in Harrisburg is interesting. I was fortunate enough to be blessed by the constituents of the 179th District, which if you don't know, it's Honey Park, Frankfurt, Feltonville, Albany, and Oxford Circle. I was elected at the age of 25, and I'm in my 5th year now. I'm 30, and I came in very idealistic and thought that good ideas would carry the day. But I'm here to tell you that that's not the reality that we face in Harrisburg. And it's only the last year and a half that we've even talked about sentencing reform, prison reform. And the only reason that's become a topic of discussion is because there's a scarcity of resources. When there's a scarcity of resources, some of the folks that don't look like us begin to think about ways that we can improve the criminal justice system. So we've had conversations about it, but we haven't done anything about it. We had a second chance piece of legislation. We had a number of things. None of that stuff has passed. And fortunately and unfortunately, we'll have the opportunity to do some of that stuff only because there are tight resources currently. And being idealistic and coming to Harrisburg, I've grown very frustrated because it takes a long time to get things done from a policy perspective. And that needs to change. And one of those reasons is that, a lot of legislators don't hear your voice. They need to hear your voice generally, but they also need to feel how you feel at the ballot box. So if you're not registered to vote, you need to get registered to vote. Make sure that you learn who's running for what they stand for, and ask them questions. What's your plan for my community? What's your plan for those folks that are returning home? Because a lot of folks, to be honest, haven't given it a lot of thought. Have not given it a lot of thought. And so I say all that to say that's part of being prepared as well. Making sure that you participate in the electoral process is extremely important. Because you need to be your own best advocate. You need to advocate for folks in a situation similar to you. Because most folks, they go away for a little while and end up coming home. And if they're not successful, we're not successful. I'll say that again. If you're not successful, this city is not successful. And I mean that in the truest sense, and that's why, there are programs at the city level. There's a lot happening at the state level. I think we need to, there's a number of bills that I'll be advocating for that we need to get passed. But the world as it should be, I'll talk about that for a little while. The world as it should be one where you're judged not by your past, but by your potential. And we got to work to get there. We got a lot of work to do to get there. And there's a lot of challenges that you're facing. And I'm very present to the fact that there are significant challenges. So I stand here ready to work with any of you to help you design a plan. Because at the end of the day, you come home, you got challenges, but you got goals. If you don't put those goals to paper, how are you going to get there? Every single one of you needs an individual roadmap. Where do you want to be? How you plan to get there? What resources do you need to get there? And what training do you need? Because right now, the world as it is shuts you out from a lot of things. If you have certain convictions, you can't get student loans, you can't do X or Y, you can't do X, Y, or Z, and that's a problem. And hopefully through legislation we'll fix that, but we can't do it without your voice being heard. So I can't underscore the importance of registering to vote. But I'm glad to see so many of you guys here. There's going to be a lot of information presented today. And I'm going to stick around for a little while. Got a lot of cards with me. And look forward to working with each and every one of you. I will say this. All of the challenges that we face are small. If we control the space between our ears, if we control that space between our ears and be focused singularly on a goal, there's nothing or no one that can stop you from getting there. The first thing you got to do is believe in yourself. The first thing you got to do is believe in yourself, be confident, and know that you can get there. But you also got to put in the work. And I know each and every one of you here are willing to do that. And I stand here as a legislator willing to work with you to get there. So thank you for having me. And I'd like to answer any questions you may have. Not all at once. I know some of you saying I look familiar. I was on American Idol. No, I'm joking. Go ahead, brother. I can't sing at all. Judgments about who you are and who they think you are because they don't know you. So they need to figure out who you are and how they can be helpful to you as well. So the problem, I would say, lies in the fact that they don't know who you are and they don't know your story. And we can't allow them to continue to judge you and not know you. And that's because they haven't met you. So each and every one of you, I'm sure, will be coming to Harrisburg, coordinated by Exodus at some point, just to introduce yourself, tell them your story, and we can end most of those assumptions by just introducing them to you. So most of the folks in Philadelphia are extremely supportive.
No, but can I have a follow-up?
Sure.
Specific, I'm talking about the state reps, your colleagues from Philadelphia. Are they behind you or?
Yeah, there hasn't been anybody that's put up any roadblocks. The ones that have been extremely supportive have been folks like Dwight Evans, Sherelle Parker, Kenyatta Johnson, Vanessa Brown, Curtis Thomas, Thaddeus Kirk. I could go on. Ron Waters. They've all been extremely helpful. The problem is, it's only 16 of us in a house of 203, and. I'll reiterate this, is that they haven't mentioned the other folks from both the suburbs and rural Pennsylvania have not met you and make judgments about you because they don't know you, so they need to get to know you. So when you come to Harrisburg, I need you guys to meet with rural legislators. Tell them who you are, tell them where you're from, tell them your story. That way they can no longer judge you based on ignorance.
I think that's a serious problem, that there's only 16 representatives from Philadelphia, when in fact, offenders are being counted in prisons that they're in. And therefore, those rural legislators have a disproportionate power to the people who they actually represent, because they don't represent us. Our interests are opposed to their policymakers. And so what's being done count prisoners from the district from which they were convicted?
There was a bill last year to end that practice, because part of it is that you should be counted where you will ultimately return home to. And frankly, we were kind of outnumbered on that. So that we lost that vote about counting prisoners to where their home address is rather than in those other areas of Pennsylvania, because that's how they get most of their population, unfortunately. And there are some small towns in Pennsylvania that's the nexus of their economy is that prison complex, and that's where they do most of their business, and that's all of their economic activity comes from that. But the next time that will be relevant is 2020. The next time there's a census, so starting early, we can push for another bill to make sure that prisoners are counted in their home zip code rather than in the prison that they're in. And that's, if that were the case, we'd have more legislators in Philadelphia. There's only 16 members in the House that are in the Black Caucus. There's 26 legislators from Philadelphia, and soon be 25. Philadelphia lost from practices like that.
My name is called Human Correctional Officer of the prison system, and I have a program I got nonprofit back in 1993, and I was in the system for 2 years, and I found out and I saw what was going on. The system's not going anywhere. My whole concept is the first I want to address is that the city is nasty. You complain about how dirty it is, how filthy it is. Why can't we create jobs for these guys to leave them at $8 an hour to get jobs in this city to start doing it? That's the basic security job. My next problem is I got a program that I want to manufacture jobs. I got to for 150 people. Making clothes. I'm bumping here trying to decide just to help us out. And give you some direction how to go about doing it. You know.
I mean, that's a project I work on with you. The piece about cleaning the city as a whole, right church, wrong pew, I would say. That would be a decision, you know, that's left up to either city council or the mayor. But you know, that's something. I think somebody from city council may be here a little later on the day. But in terms of cleaning the city, I don't disagree. The city is dirty, and we definitely need to clean it. But I will say this: that's a learned behavior. That's a learned behavior. That's something we need to unlearn. And because there's no government entity, you know, dropping potato chip bags and water bottles and what have you. That's us. And we got to first police ourselves to make sure it doesn't look like that. But that's a whole another conversation at another time. But in terms of starting a program like that, that's city council and the mayor type conversation. But I would endorse and support something like that. But going forward, make sure you know, we exchange information so we can work on. I can help you, you know, get that process started with the job creation piece, start that company.
Because like I said, I'm right now going to work out the church. We love after church. Or it's called on the machine situation. I'm ready to work.
Okay. There's a couple programs I can think of that can, you know, if it's equipment, you know, as a business, the state can, you know, offset the cost of some of those purchases, particularly if the job creation numbers are there.
Take one last question.
How you doing today, Tony? I'm doing all right. I look at I'm a member of the Muslim community, and I heard a lot of spoke of with regard to being incarcerated. My question is, how close are we to the goal of actually adding being incarcerated to the discriminatory clause?
I mean, right now there's a House Bill 300, which is the non-discrimination language, and that's an amendment that was drafted to that. But I mean, the non-discrimination language, I don't think is going to run in this session. I'll tell you why. Because the Republicans, you know, haven't. They just think people should be able to discriminate just plainly. They oppose that legislation. So the chances of it running with the Democrats not in power, it's not going to happen. At least not this term. So to the end of this year and the end of next term, part of it is that we can change this whole piece by making sure that we turn out. And the reason we're facing, you know, while we're in this, not while we're in this budget mess, that's due to the recession, but the reason some of the decisions were made on the last budget, where we cut education by about $900 million, cut everything else significantly, is because the people that are crafting the budget are it's Tom Corbett and his folks, who I'll just say that they don't necessarily believe in people, and that manifests itself in a number of ways, because they think we should cut, you know, subsidized daycare, which keeps people at work and those sorts of things, and they have this mentality we can do more with less without looking at the faces behind what those dollars mean. So if we had just 5% more turnout in Philadelphia, we might have had another Democratic governor. If we had a Democratic governor, we wouldn't be cutting education and all these other programs that folks need at a time of a deep recession. I mean, to me, the whole thing was nonsensical. You had a budget that cut all these things, and we literally had $700 million just sitting in the left pocket. The state had $700 million sitting in the left pocket, but yet we cut education and all these programs. We've been cutting the state food purchase program by $2 million, right? At a time where you've got records of number of people going hungry. So it's this nonsensical mentality that doesn't look at what the need is. It's just this whole mentality where we gotta cut, we're spending too much money. In the abstract, that stuff sounds good, but when you boil it down into practice, it actually affects real people. So there lies the problem. So the long answer to your question is I don't see that bill running for at least another year because the Democrats don't control the House. Therefore, we don't control the agenda. Basically, we just, they decide what's coming up and when. And, once we get back in control, that's one of the priority items for our caucus. And there will be an amendment to that bill that will address that.
Thank you, Tim.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to stick around, hang out, make sure I connect with whoever I need to connect with. But thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. And if I could say anything, that we got a lot of work to do because the world as it is inherently unfair. It's a system that wasn't necessarily designed for us and for us to prosper and benefit. But we can work our way toward the world as it should be. But the first thing we have to do is we got to be prepared. We got to be prepared, and we have to be prepared in a number of ways. So when we are looking for that job or that opportunity, we got to make sure that it's not luck, it's preparation and hard work. And then that opportunity presents itself, and you blow the door down because your skills are far better than everybody else's. So thank you very much.